On this week's episode of the Geek State, rejoice! New comic books are arriving at your local comic book store. What to look for when you venture out.
Justice may be served in this addition to the HBO Max lineup.
Bo-Katan, Boba, and your dog are joining Baby Yoda this fall on The Mandalorian. All that and more on this episode of the Geek State.
Zoran! Can we ask you some questions? It's for our podcast.
Well, in that case.
How many people that you saved have you saved? Wait, never mind. Does your thing really stand for hope?
Yes, it does.
But it looks like an S.
Yes, it's meant to. It's...
Stand by alert.
This is it!
First in friendship, fourth in podcasting. This is the Geek State.
Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of The Geek State, the podcast about all the cool stuff going on in the world of geek. I'm Chris, and of course, joining me as always, my buddy James. I wouldn't do it with anybody else talking geek stuff. James, it's weird because we didn't do a podcast last week. Stuff in real life was just crazy with work and things, but I feel like I've hung out with you more in the last week than virtually. With all of your streaming stuff. Let's talk about this, James. James you're a certified Twitch affiliate. You're big time.
I mean, I wouldn't call it big time. I would call it small time. But it's time. See, a lot of people don't get to where I am, so I moved to New York. That's what we're doing here. I haven't made it on Broadway yet, but I'm in New York. I'm trying to get my name out there. I'm handing out the pamphlets on the street, doing the comedy seat hawking. Or you got to get people to come in with your color pamphlet to get stage time. That's what I'm doing right now.
You're that plucky 18-year-old that steps off a bus in Times Square with just a briefcase and a dream. And because this is an account that you've had for a while, that you've had, you've done some more sporadic streaming in the past, but then over the recent times, I mean, if you're not following S Geeks James on Twitch, you're missing out, because there's been some solid gold moments. My favorite being a couple of weeks, maybe it was just last week. What is time right now? Honestly,
no one knows. I literally, side note, Monday's Memorial Day. I literally texted my boss and was like, "Are we off? Like, what's even going on?"
Yeah, on that topic, work's been like, make sure to take your vacation time. I'm like, what does it matter? Like,
yeah, right.
I don't have to respond to emails, whatever. But some of my favorite moments, especially with what's the game that's the flight simulator that you've been playing?
It's a DCS, Digital Combat Simulator. And I'm less playing it and more being barked commands by my brother and executing poorly on said commands. That's what I'm doing.
That thing is super complicated. The first time I saw you playing it, I launched Twitch and started watching, and I was like, all right, let's see James try to take off in this. What is it? You're doing the F-18?
Yes. The Hornets, I believe.
Waiting for him to launch and, or take off or whatever. And, walked away for a bit and came back to the stream probably 30 minutes later. He's still on the runway. And you got your brother in your ear telling you, like, flip this switch. All right, now, do you see that tiny button off to the side?
Yeah. Well, the problem is he knows all this stuff, right? So he speaks in these abbreviations and these acronyms and these not even acronyms, but like phoneticized acronyms. Like if it's ABC, he'll say, now flip over your epic. And I'm like, what's the epic? Like, what does that even mean? But, he's super smart in it and he's super patient, and he seems to be enjoying it as well. And the Twitch stream seems to enjoy it, but we're working on, I've got Takeoff. Takeoff is doable now. The issue's landing. Turns out it's a little bit harder to get that steel bird on the ground than it is to get it off. But I've landed a couple times successfully. By successful, I mean it wouldn't have been able to take off again because I no longer had landing gears. But sometimes you come in a little hot.
Yeah, a few days ago, I think you ejected off of on your landing, walked away from the plane. Plane was on fire, and then your brother's plane was heading right towards you on the runway and just stood defiantly in its way.
I did stand defiantly in its way. It was an excellent screen grab opportunity, and I believe you did take advantage of that. And thank you for tweeting it. But thank you, everybody who has stopped by. It's been awesome. And I think now that we have, now that I have reached affiliate status, it does open up a lot more options for us, or for me, on streaming, and potentially more options to involve the podcast and watch parties and things like that we need to kind of figure out before we announce anything. But I think it is on the horizon of something that we can definitely do.
I think it'd be great to be able to, I mean, I don't know what's available on Amazon Prime streaming at the moment, but to be able to watch a show with everybody listening, to be able to chat and engage there, and then also see our pretty faces and have us talk about, whatever the movie is. It'd be awesome if this was around when we did the Starship Troopers episode, because we could, maybe have watched Starship Troopers together as a Geek State.
And then break off and do the episode. And use chat and ask questions, and we can answer questions live, things like that. So, I think there's potential to integrate the James Kelly Twitch Geeks James universe and the the Geek State podcast universe, and get some sort of trade agreement going between the two states, independent nations, and make them one.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to the next stream, because you've got your schedule. So I think what are you?
So schedules right now is Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday I'm doing it guaranteed. And those all start 9 p.m. Central Time. But a lot of times I'm there a little bit early. So you may get the notification a little bit early if you sign up for those. But I will be there hopefully right around 9 o'clock Thursday, Friday, Sunday Central Time. And Thursday I do the flight simulator, Tuesday I do the flight simulator. Thursday I don't really have what I do. And then Sunday I call it my Defeating the Sunday Scaries, and we play horror games. And right now we're playing Man of Medan, which is like a choose your own adventure made by the people who did Until Dawn, which both of us enjoyed quite. So
which is I find it enjoyable just to watch on the stream, because those are like movies, right? Even if I'm not making decisions, you're making quality choices based upon, what you want to see happen in the game. But, for everybody watching, via the stream, it's like watching a movie play out. And this one's got Iceman in it.
It does have Iceman, not Val Kilmer Iceman, but X-Men Iceman.
Yeah, Sean Ashmore's in that one. So definitely follow that. If you want links for all this stuff, make sure you follow us on Twitter. I've been tweeting out some stuff. If I get a good screen grab, I posted it there. So if you want to see James facing down his brother's aircraft on the runway, that's over there at the Geek State podcast Twitter account. It's a big week for comic books this week. We got a couple of big things, some of them involving movies, but we're going to be talking to the other James later on in the show. He's a big comic book fan, and it's a big week for comic book stores as Diamond resumed shipping books this week, and then next week we'll have some new Marvel books. So James is going to break it down. He's really excited about next week's comic books, and so going to share some recommendations and maybe things to look for, and then also some ways that you can support your local comic store during all this time. There's been some really cool things that they've been doing, and I'm sure we'll share some of that stuff later. I do also just want to briefly, it kind of fits with this because we talk about streaming software and things that happen in the movie industry here on the podcast. And I wouldn't normally talk about it, but it's strange times when a movie like Trolls World Tour brings in hundreds of millions of dollars instead of bypassing the entire process of going to the movie theaters. And Scoob, the latest Scooby-Doo movie, bypassed movie theaters and went direct to video. This time a little different. So with Trolls World Tour, it was a rental only option. You plop down $19, you got the rental for 48 hours. With Scoob, you had two options, $19 for rent or $24 to buy. And over the weekend did the purchase version, but
you fancy.
Yeah, well, there was kind of a reason. So I love Movies Anywhere. So if you don't have Movies Anywhere as a subscription, it's free. It's the thing you sign up for. It links all your your iTunes account, your Amazon account, all that stuff together, so that everybody has the stuff. And so I found kind of it's a loophole. But I've got some extended family that was like, hey, I'll buy it if you'll send me like $10 on Venmo. And so then they have the Vudu account. So I don't watch any of the stuff on Vudu.
Right.
But they can, but because I bought it, it shows up in Vudu as a purchase, and then they can watch it whenever. And they've got kids, so it made sense to go ahead and plop down and own it. And it's not. I will say I will never watch Scoob ! Again, because it's not very good. But when
it has Tracy Morgan as Captain Caveman.
Yeah, honestly, probably the best part. And that's the thing I wanted to talk about was how the part of Scoob that made me the most kind of excited when things like that happen, when Captain Caveman shows up. It's also, you got Dick Dastardly and Muttley, and you brought in some of these other Hanna-Barbera stuff, and I was like, man, I was really hoping for one more. Like there was this opportunity that, are we getting like the Hanna-Barbera shared universe? Like there was, I think, a reference to Johnny Quest at some point, like on a sign, like Quest Laboratories or something like that. And I was like, that's kind of cool. I could, that would be an interesting kind of thing, because there's so many cool, characters that could inhabit this world. The Jetsons take place in a different timeline, but right. And so does the Flintstones, but who cares? The Flintstones could come in, and everybody has crossed over onto Scooby-Doo. I think the Ninja Turtles and Batman definitely has over time. So,
but pretty much your whole Wacky Racers crew is available.
Yeah.
Right? That's that's essentially the universe that this is in that Wacky Racers era.
Yeah, 100%
timeline.
Yeah, there's some weird. I will say there was a feeling that I had towards the beginning of the movie, and we're gonna trust me, I'm not gonna spend that much time on this. But the movie felt like it was written in like 2000 and more like maybe 2005. And then updated with some references. And here's the reason why. Early in the movie, first of all, if you're thinking this is like, oh my gosh, this is like Scooby-Doo, but they're all kids and they're solving mysteries. No, that's like the first 15 minutes or so. And when they're looking to turn Mystery Inc. into like a big time company, they need investors, and their investor is Simon Cowell.
Like he plays the investor, or it is just Simon Cowell?
It's literally Simon Cowell as himself, as an investor.
They
I was
didn't
like,
get like a shark, one of the shark. They didn't get Mark Cuban. Like, wouldn't that have made more sense?
Right, because Simon Cowell makes sense in like 2005.
Mark Cuban was in Sharknado 4, so he's got the chops. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we know he can act. He's got the talent. He's got the money. I just found it was like Simon Cowell. Like, if anybody, if anything, like that just felt so out of place.
Yeah, that's so strange.
Yeah, but we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk again. Once again, we're going to bring other James in a little bit later to talk about what's going on with comic books and comic book stores and all the new stuff that's coming in. But man, we had the gods bless us with a big story, and we can't wait to talk about it.
All right, with all the new streaming services that are being announced, all the stuff that's coming out on it, Chris, this has got to be the wildest, most left field feature of any of them. And
so unexpected.
It's so unexpected, so weird, so left field. But HBO Max has announced today that they will be releasing the Snyder Cut. Essentially, Snyder announced that the film called Zack Snyder's Justice League will come to the streaming service at some point in 2021. He said we still have a lot of work to do. According to the Hollywood Reporter, the film will feature extensive retooling, including additional dialogue with the actors and new visual effects, with costs numbered to be somewhere in the $20 to $30 million range. There's also a chance that the Snyder Cut could be presented as a miniseries instead of a singular movie. Those decisions, as well as lots of post-production work, still need to be done. This is crazy. Like, everyone has been claiming that they want this, but they don't even know what it is. Like, that's what's confusing to me. What say you?
Yes. What say you, Chris? What do you think about this? Here's my thoughts. First of all, I kind of think that this is setting kind of a dangerous precedent for fan culture.
Yes.
In some ways, because the story. So sometimes I assume that everybody already kind of has this understanding of what the Snyder cut of Justice League is. And then I realize that I have a lot of people who listen to the show that, communicate or tweet back or stuff, that this is kind of like they don't follow all the stuff. They're not on, they're not in that geek world, but we're kind of like providing them some of that base level stuff. So some explanation of what the Snyder cut is would be helpful. So I did a little digging to find out some more information about it. But basically, back when Justice League was being filmed, the principal photography had finished, and they were getting ready for the reshoots and the whole post-production process to happen. And tragically, Zack Snyder's daughter passed away. So Zack took some much needed and deserved time to be with family during that time, but the film needed someone at the helm. So DC Warner Brothers brought in Joss Whedon to finish the film. Well, apparently, because, who knows the honest truth, Joss came in with 80 new pages, and traditionally about a page is about a minute, on script pages. Typically it's like, this is about a minute of film. Mm-hmm. They filmed 80 pages worth of stuff, which it's almost, that's almost a whole movie. The director of photography has been quoted to say that the director of photography on the original film with Zack Snyder said that only about 10% of his original content ever made it to the screen. The one we saw in theaters was only 2 hours. But what we've heard is that Zack Snyder's cut of the film, this is like, this is a cut of the movie without visual effects, without sound design, without music, without, any of that stuff was clocking it. And these typically are huge. Like when they first probably, put together the first cut of Rise of Skywalker, it probably was almost 4 hours long. You shoot everything, you put everything in sequence order, and then you start making those chops. So, so Zach's been pretty vocal, but not vocal, and saying like, yeah, it exists. Like I have a cut of the movie, and it's apparently very different. Jason Momoa said that the movie that we saw in theaters is very different. Like almost like a completely different movie. There was characters like Darkseid and stuff like that were not included in the final film, and all of that. So they're basically taking $20-30 million, which, is obviously not enough to shoot a whole new movie, but to finish this off. But, just your thoughts on kind of on the potential damage of precedent, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of been vocal about Twitter should not determine how movies are made or how casting is done or how certain things are done. I don't think that that's healthy. I don't think that that's good. I think it empowers too many people with the tiny little bit of power, where they think that they then have made this happen, if that makes sense. Like it's like I think it has, I don't know. It seems, I don't know how to say it without sounding like some sort of like, dictator, but it's just like, people should have power. Yes, people should have power and should have agency to make their own decisions, but they shouldn't have power to determine how private sector things are done, I guess is what I'm saying. But it's like, they shouldn't be able to determine how Hollywood is run or how, decisions are made. It's like you're talking about things that cost millions of dollars, and there's millions of reasons why things are being made. And I think my giant fear is that they're going to make this, and I didn't know that this was even on the table from the Hollywood Reporter when they said that I don't know if it's going to be a miniseries or if it's going to be a singular movie. If they make this a 6 hour like miniseries, like a 6-part miniseries, and then people are like, that was so cool. And it's like, yeah, but you can't have a 6 hour movie. That's why it got cut. Like that's what I'm afraid is going to happen. It's almost like the same thing as the the last season of Game of Thrones where everyone was like, oh, you needed to do this, and this. It's like, well, how much money did they have? Or how much, there's so much that goes into it that you have no concept of. And it's like, that's why I said, like, I think it would be great to get the people, the 50 people with the most retweets talking shit about the last season of Game of Thrones, put them in a room and then make them make the last season of Game of Thrones and see how good it turns out. Like that's what needs to happen when these things happen. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, but this is a little bit different in the fact that though Zack Snyder wasn't like outwardly like, my version's way better. Like I don't recall.
He just confirmed that it was like it exists.
He just confirmed that he would have done it differently.
Just as any director would. Any director
and that
would.
is very politically correct answer to give, and because he wants to continue to work in the business, and if he were to go scorched earth, that might turn out poor for him. So.
I just think about the people who have been furiously tweeting about this since, I guess, 2017, and now they think, oh, if you only spend 3 years constantly retweeting about this, we can get our way. Now, obviously, we had our way with Sonic's redesign. I mean, they didn't change the movie at all. They just changed how he looked, which I honestly think it was, for the better. And we've talked about that before. Honestly, here's what I think is the truth. I think HBO Max and Warner Brothers, AT&T, the whole parent company, are looking at, oh my God, everything that we were shooting, everything that we had planned to make big, all these original HBO Max series have been put on hold and we can't finish them in time. But here's what we do have. We have something that has a ton of online chatter. It's going to make huge news. And all we have to do is do some audio, some ADR, and then do some post-production work, which can be done in a quarantine setting, and we can bring in the big bucks. The thing is with a mini series, that's how you get people to stay subscribed. If you spread out those episodes over at least 2 months, or at least over 30 days. So because people will drop the $16 to watch it once and then cancel HBO Max. But if you get them to at least make it to that first billing cycle that's auto billed, they forget about it.
Right. That's true. Yeah,
that's business, baby.
That's how subscriptions on Twitch work too. Twitch.tv/SKeithJames. But
I'm a subscriber.
I know. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Please don't subscribe unless you have the free Amazon Prime thing.
Send them the monies.
No, but any money that does come in will go directly back into the stream. Just so you know.
Yes.
I'm not trying to.
I think it's funny because I think that anybody who thinks that the Snyder cut is for the fans, like that they're doing this because is delusional. The only reason why they're doing this is because they know they're going to get those much needed subscribers, because Disney Plus, set the bar super high for, here's a brand new streaming service. It only costs like $7 and, setting records on subscribers. Yeah.
Right.
And I don't think HBO Max is anywhere close to that. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. You did bring up a good point with the whole. I didn't even think about the fact that this could potentially only be happening because of coronavirus and they can't film anything. Mm-hmm. Like that didn't even cross my mind. That is an excellent observation by you and or whoever you read that from.
No, that literally
just kidding.
That popped in my head, like literally while we were talking about this, because honestly, back when all of those productions started crashing down, shutting down, I would have been like, what do we have that's just not finished? Or what do we have that we filmed and never released? What can we brush up? What can we fix?
We could have finally got that Robert Jordan Wheel of Time series. That they keep airing at like 2:00 in the morning on FX to keep the license to.
I think that that's been resolved. That's coming to Amazon.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think that's something that's going on. But talking about streaming service, James, we missed some big stuff, and I'm excited to talk about it because it wouldn't be an episode of the Geek State without some fresh Mandalorian news. Was kind of hoping today was a weird unannounced like Disney streaming day where they made announcements, but all I got was Simpsons are going to be in the original 4:3 aspect ratio by May 28th. And there's a Muppets TV show. I was kind of hoping for some, really like some sort of sizzle reel that was like, coming in the next year. Here's, it's a baby Yoda shot, and here's a quick shot of the Mando, and then, a hooded figure, and you're like, who's that?
But we didn't. As Genie.
It's the bridging. That's how they're going to bridge these worlds. Disney and Aladdin shows up on one of the Mandalorian planets, but alas, we did not get any of that. But there's been some really interesting Mandalorian casting news that have been verified by many of the trades that have a really high reputation. Slash Film, a site that I love. Peter over at Slash Film has been breaking some super big scoops that have been turning out to be at least verified by folks like Hollywood Reporter and Variety and stuff like that. So let's talk a little bit about that. I do have one big announcement. I'm going to be in the Mandalorian. James, you are too.
Yes.
Your Tortoise. Everyone
is going to be in the Mandalorian. It's a big party, and everyone is invited.
Yeah, everybody gets a chance. I mean, but no, for real, the biggest one, came, a month or so ago with Rosario Dawson being reported to be appearing as Ahsoka Tano. Also hearing some rumors that they've started moving forward on an Ahsoka Disney Plus standalone series. Something that I think we would have heard about. Still don't know if it's canceled yet, but Star Wars Celebration is scheduled for August. And so I'm like, well, it kind of makes sense. You show her.
Where's it supposed to be? Is it Florida?
California. I think it's Anaheim.
Oh, yeah. Well, Florida. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen there, but they might move it to Florida because they're doing live sports. So
they don't. It's Florida, man.
The heat kills it. So
yeah. So exactly. Yeah. I'll repeat what you said on the stream. We won't get political. But I imagine they showed, when they get to Star Wars Celebration time, which I always enjoy because they do a live stream of basically everything. So if they can pull something off like that, I think fans can all really enjoy it. Now, nothing quite beats the convention atmosphere of being around a bunch of people and then wishing that you just could get back to the hotel room to just like take a shower because you feel so gross. But hanging with friends and, all that kind of stuff. But I always thought the Mandalorian, they'll show the trailer because it's coming out in October. Disney has said that everything is good. It's not delayed. We'd see like a quick shot of Ahsoka and people would flip out. And then they'd be like, and here's Rosario Dawson. And then she's like, and we're going to make a show. And it'll be like, oh my God. So we know Rosario is most likely coming on as Ahsoka Tano. But then more recently, there's been some more news confirming that Tamora Morrison, again, these are all unconfirmed because they're not on StarWars.com. So, but everybody else is saying that this is true. So Tamora Morrison, who played Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones, he was also the all the clones in Revenge of the Sith, and of course he is the template for Boba Fett. And the rumors are saying that he's going to be coming as Boba Fett, but because we're also getting Ahsoka Tano, we're also hearing that he will also be playing Old Man Rex, who was hanging out with Ahsoka during this time. We know that Rex made it to the Battle of Endor based on the stuff that happens in Rebels. So that's pretty cool. And then the thing that I was hoping would happen last season, and James, I was excited to see that you saw it and you sent me a text with the announcement, but that Katee Sackhoff, Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica, Nico from Another Life, which I
really enjoyed. Starbuck in that show.
Yeah, well, so it's man, James, we
can just continue.
No, I'm talking about Starbuck because I love Katee Sackhoff. I think she's amazing. But so on the original Battlestar Galactica series, Dirk Benedict played Starbuck. And on the remake, on this reboot, they ginger flipped it. So Starbuck was played by Katee Sackhoff, and I think is the standout from that series. So Katee Sackhoff voiced Bo-Katan on the Clone Wars and in Rebels. She was at one time the owner and possessed the Darksaber that we later saw Moff Gideon with at the end of Mandalorian season 1. Spoiler if you haven't seen it, but you have no excuses at this point.
Get it together. I
mean, come on, you're listening to this show and you're not watching the Yeah, there's no excuses. If you need $7, I'll Venmo you $7. You can have. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not giving out money.
I'll give all my Twitch money to the first person who tells me they haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I'd be like, prove it. So Katee Sackhoff voiced Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan is a Mandalorian. She is freaking awesome, and she even looks like Katee Sackhoff with red hair. So it's a perfect casting for it, which I'd hoped. That my original thought was we were seeing the Mandalorian as a child being rescued, and I always hoped when those doors opened and we saw who the Mandalorian was that it was going to be Bo-Katan, but it wasn't. She's what I would assume based on Clone Wars stuff. She's hanging out with Ahsoka, doing stuff with her. So that's how maybe she's brought in into that. And some interesting things, because I was looking back, because I remember seeing a tweet from a long time ago from Katee that it made me think, oh, maybe she's doing Star Wars. But then months would go by and you wouldn't hear anything about it. And I thought, well, maybe not, because, the rumors, once you start thinking about something, you'd hear about it. The rumors would start flying. But she tweeted on November 5th of 2019, gotta say, today was pretty much a career high for me. One day soon, you'll understand what I mean. But for right now, just know that it's the coolest thing ever! ! ! ! ! ! ! And she wasn't filming her Second Life season 2 because they didn't start doing that till later. And Star Wars, can't compete with that. I think that right there is her cryptic way of saying I just did time on the Mandalorian set, and just freaking awesome.
Yeah, the only thing that concerns me about this is in her tweet, now that we're looking back at it, it says, gotta say, today was pretty much a career high. So does this mean she has like a tiny role and is only in the tiniest little bit of this show?
Yeah. If she's not with Ahsoka, my only thought is that we're going to get some flashbacks when we're dealing with Moff Gideon's Darksaber. That's true. That maybe he, monologues a little bit about something, and then we see the history of the Darksaber.
Yeah, that's true.
And we see a non-speaking role, or she just holds it up and recreates her scene from Rebels where she says "for Mandalore," and holds it up above her head, so there could be some cool stuff. Now, this is the I guess announcement I didn't expect, but this is speculation, folks, so it's not spoiler, but Timothy Oliphant, who, if I remember correctly, was in Deadwood, was a Western. So it kind of,
he was in Deadwood. He was also in the Justified on FX.
Also a Western.
He was also the porn director in Girl Next Door. The great.
Oh, he was also Hitman.
He was Hitman as well. Yeah, he was Hitman in the first Hitman movie, not the second. That was garbage.
So earlier we talked about Tamora Morrison. He's never coming on the show. It's okay. Tamora Morrison, like we said, was going to come back as Boba Fett. But then we get this news that Timothy Oliphant's coming on, and he's going to be the one in Boba Fett's armor. So in the Chuck Wendig books, the Aftermath books, which tell the story of what happened right after the events of Return of the Jedi, there's a character named Cobb Vanth, who is the self-appointed sheriff of a Tatooine-based settlement called Freetown. Terrible name. Doesn't sound Star Wars-y at all. But he wears... Yeah, they don't straight up say that he's wearing Boba Fett's armor, but that he's wearing a mysterious set of Mandalorian armor that was acquired from Jawas, who scavenged the wreckage of Jabba the Hutt's sail barge shortly after events of the Return of the Jedi. So it's Boba Fett's armor. Right. So I'm thinking maybe it was Cobb Vanth that we saw at the end of that one episode where Finnick was presumed dead, and we see these, spurs, and we hear the sound effect from Boba Fett's armor, and it's not Boba Fett. So we're going to see this, Boba Fett armor on screen, and then he takes his helmet off, and everybody's like, wait, is that Hitman? Who's that guy?
Oh God. Yeah. I mean, I think I even sent it to you in a text. I just hope that, and I kind of mentioned it on the Katee Sackhoff thing, but I just hope that these are fleshed out characters and they're not just fan service being thrown in to, keep people excited about a show. Like I just hope it is not one of those, ocean wide, but puddle deep type situations.
I have a lot of faith in Dave that he'll do episodes of like the Clone Wars where you're like, that was kind of pointless. But then 2 seasons later, you're like, oh no, because of this couldn't have all played out. Like he thinks in those big epic ways that George did, mythologically speaking. So there might be some small characters that, just one episode only, but I think that they are so aware of the character development and the magic that they have in the Mandalorian to go to waste. Really looking forward to this week's episode of the Star Wars Disney Gallery Mandalorian documentary series, because they did the directors, they did the cast, and now we're on to the technology. So this is where we're really going to see the how stagecraft works, how working in the volume with the whole NVIDIA stuff. So that's going to be super exciting to see. If you haven't, check that out on Disney Plus.
Take out the officials counting.
This is a feature presentation.
And now, on with the show.
So ever since the coronavirus hit everything and everybody shut down, so did comic books. New comic books have not been showing up at local comic stores. In fact, a lot of stores they weren't even open. They were, figuring out different ways to continue bringing in some revenue. But the day has finally come. We got new books coming into stores, not all at once, not every publisher is getting stuff into stores, but I needed to bring in our comic book expert. And it's other James. James, you were on the show back during the summer. You did an E3 thing with James. It's going to be confusing both.
James Prime.
Yeah, there you go.
But tell us kind of what the situation is, because no new books to go pick up. But now today, we're getting some new books. So kind of fill us in. What's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So today was the first new comic book day since the shutdown. And it was exciting. It wasn't as jam-packed as they usually are, but we got some new books this week, and it was fun to kind of go into the shop for once and actually see new product. And not that back issues aren't fun, but sure, it was pretty cool.
So kind of what was that that experience like? Because was this the first time back in a store since everything shut down?
Not necessarily. I mean, Fort Worth was a little different. You could kind of go into stores already as long as there was maybe 3 people in there. But at the same time, there's a wall dedicated to new product, and it was pretty bare for past couple weeks. And now you kind of see a little bit of life. So it was definitely fresh, and you could tell that the comic book owner, the shop owner, was just ecstatic to have people in there and actually buying new products. So it was awesome.
Yeah. Sounds like the energy of today.
There was definitely some energy in there, and there were more people obviously waiting to get in the store. And you could tell that his name is Ron, the guy that I go to. It's a store called Collected in Fort Worth. He was just, he's cautiously excited. And it's just really fun and nice to kind of go in and be able to spend your money on something that's new. Not that, again, back issues are great, but to have a new book in your hand is really nice.
So what's already back in stores? Because I know not everything is headed. Right. Is already not all the publishers had stuff in stores today. What can you expect if you went into the store this weekend?
So if you were to go in the store today, you're not going to see any Marvel. You're going to see a ton of DC and a couple independents. And DC has been actually distributing their books through other distributors for the past 3 weeks, which there's a little bit of, I wouldn't say debate, but there's some people are angry about it. Some people are happy about it. But anyway, they've been shipping their books for 3 weeks, and finally Diamond, kind of assessed the situation and figured they could start shipping in mid-May. And so that's what they did. So they started shipping DC, IDW, I can't remember the other ones, but a handful of other independents. Whereas Marvel, they're not going to start shipping their books until next week. So we'll start getting a sprinkle of Marvel books. I think there's 5 in total that are shipping next week. So they're kind of giving the realtor and the consumer a chance to kind of drip back into new comic books rather than just flooding it, which I think is really smart. Whereas DC has just been on the get-go, just throwing their product at the stores. So, and some of them aren't even open yet. So it kind of sucks that they're getting product and they can't sell it.
Right. So obviously you walked into a store today and there's no way that you came out empty handed.
No, absolutely not.
What did you pick up today?
So, again, I didn't have anything on my pull list, but, the night before they kind of send you an email of like everything that's coming in. So kind of nice to see and browse before you go in the store. And I picked up a copy of the Ludocrats from Image Comics. And the cover alone, and I think, I wouldn't say I'm a comic book expert, but I buy with my eyes, and a very colorful, very vibrant, and very crowded cover. And I've got to say, I read it this afternoon, and it is ludicrous. It's really good. I wasn't expecting it. And again, I saw it on the email last night, and it's really fun. And I strongly, I recommend it for sure. I don't want to give away anything out of it except for the fact that it's ludicrous.
And what was it called again?
The Ludocrats.
Okay.
And again, a lot of fun, and the artwork in it is great. The colors are extremely vibrant. I think that's one of the main things that kind of drew my eye to it. It was just very loud when it comes to colors, and I like it. I like it a lot. Sorry, James, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm looking at the cover right now, and yellow as a comic book cover is a very bold move.
Right, exactly. Here, okay, I will give everybody a spoken word preview of the first page.
Oh, do voices.
I can't do a voice, but I can describe to you the first page, which essentially is probably a 6'8" young version of Santa Claus. So everything is red, like hair is red instead of white, butt naked, covered in blood. And I'm not kidding. Like, that is exactly what the first page is. Like, you see,
it's ludicrous.
It's ludicrous. You see a little bit of, it's mature for sure.
I see some Santa bits.
Yeah, pretty much.
So next week, Marvel is coming, and you said there's just a few books, handful of new books. And I saw on social media when you were posting about New Comic Day that you're really excited about next week. So what should Marvel fans be looking for when they go into their comic store next week? So
during quarantine, I've obviously have time to kind of pick up some other things that I haven't necessarily have started to read. And one of the biggest things, and I think it's actually one of the biggest issues next week, is Venom number 25. Donny Cates is currently writing that run, and it is mind blowing. I just started reading it, and I can't put it down. You really can't find the early issues of Venom anymore. They're into the third and fourth print already. But Venom number 25 comes out. It's an oversized issue. It's got I want to say 20 variant covers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And Ron is going to have, I think, 4 of them. I think I'm picking up one of them outside of the standard A cover. So that's going to be a big one. But then the one that I've been waiting for forever, because I am a huge X-Men fan, is Marauders number 10. And we kind of get some answers to some questions that we've been waiting for. And obviously for a very long time now, since this whole freaking pandemic, we've been just sitting on a cliffhanger for 2 months.
So incredibly frustrating.
You can wait another week.
I really can't. No, I can't. I swear, if they end up saying, you know what, we're closing the country down again next week, I'm going to be so pissed.
What if the writers are just feed you more breadcrumbs? They're just
oh, well, of course they're going to. They'll be like, oh, here's one answer, and oh, here's 20 more questions.
It's like a season finale of Lost.
Absolutely.
Very cool. I have to thank you, James, for we were not too long ago, but again, time has no relevance in the way I'm thinking back. This was not last week, but maybe it was the week before. We've been hopping on your Twitch channel, which feel free to plug at any moment, to watch and kind of discuss the comic books that are being sold on Facebook live streams from places like Collected and Duncanville Comic Book Store.
Bookstore. It shall not be named.
It shall not be named.
We call it the DBS.
There you go.
I have issues.
I think we need to hear that story at some point. I think everybody needs to hear that story.
Did I not? I feel like that's the problem. I know I shared it on the stream, but I couldn't remember if I've done it on the podcast. I'll do the abbreviated one. So little Chris, who was super into Batman at this time, got to go to his very first comic book store. And that comic book store was the one that shall not be named. And I was looking through, the back, the old issues and just kind of, probably looking at them. And, as I have to imagine I was like 8 or 9 years old. And I was incredibly scolded in a way that I remember. Like, you don't remember every time like your teacher gets on to you or, your parents get on to you. But this was like imprinted in my memory. This guy who yelled at me for saying I was bending the comics when I know full well I was not bending the comics. I want to say my mom took me and she was like, she was, stood up and you don't talk to my child that way, grabbed my hand and we left that store. So then I see you on your Twitch channel, live broadcasting from this. And I'm like, oh my God, that's him.
Flashbacks.
Like I had some PTSD. I needed to pop some pills to just get over the flashbacks of all this bad experiences. That could have really ruined my comic book enjoyment forever. You got to treat that next generation of potential fans with care.
Well, it didn't affect you too much because you're doing okay now.
Yeah, but I want to thank you because you started talking and I want you to kind of up the ante and give this an official Geek State challenge to the both me and James because you're so into X-Men and I was in the 90s especially back when the animated series was on, super into the X-Men. Got a ton of comic book cards. We've got a lot of X-Men back issues from that era. And you were like, man, you gotta get into this new X-Men stuff.
Yeah. I gave you a little bit of homework.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I got the Marvel Unlimited app and, in one sitting I'm reading, I started with, was it Powers or House? I forget.
I think it's House and then Powers. Yeah. Yeah.
So it kind of goes back and forth between these two different books. Mm-hmm. And I think I've almost finished those. And the stuff it makes sense because I picked up what I found the issue that I bought because I was like, man, I picked one up and I was super confused. But it's because I picked up X-Men #1, which, after all of this stuff that's happened.
Yep.
And I'm like, what the hell is going on this series?
We're on the moon? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, what is this stuff? But man, the stuff with Moira and just like it's incredible. And it's starting to build to that level that you were talking about. And you've got some ideas that we can't talk about yet about like what Marvel Studios should do with X-Men. But I need you to officially issue this challenge on the air so that James feels somewhat obligated to do this.
Yeah. So I think, the challenge definitely is to read House of X Powers of 10, the current X-Men run from Jonathan Hickman. It's definitely game changing, as you know, Luby. And it just kind of casts the characters you know and love into a completely different light that I think has huge ramifications, not only in the comic books, but potentially in the MCU if they go in that direction, which I think they might. With Feige kind of in charge of everything now, you would think that he can mastermind comics into the point where we're writing scripts and comic books at the same time. So,
yeah. I'm starting to see as I'm finishing up this series. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see where maybe James is going to go with this. When he pitches the idea. Mm-hmm. James, are you up to this? Can you do this?
You can do it.
I mean, I am. I am starting my career as a Twitch streamer, so it's going to be a little difficult for me to find time. But maybe I can find time to read these peasant books.
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding.
Saying the man that has comics all over his wall.
That's true. I do have a lot of them hanging on my wall. Yes, I will resub to Marvel Unlimited. I will read these books and we will definitely do this.
We'll reconvene.
We can have a reconvening and a discussion.
That'd be dope.
I love speculating. I love the idea of saying, okay, here's what they're doing in the comics. How can they bring this into the Marvel Cinematic Universe? So I'm pumped to have that discussion. James, thanks so much to come on the show and talk comic books with us. Cause you know, when I need stuff about comics, I go to you. When I need info on video games, I go to James Prime.
There you go.
Speaking of Prime, if you have a Prime subscription, you also get a free Twitch subscription that you can use, twitch.tv/SGeeksJames.
There you go.
Thanks, James, for coming on.
Let's look around the region and take our pick of the week.
Shut up and take my money.
All right. Every week we like to put our stamp of approval. Sometimes it's a, hey, we tried this, don't do it. But it's our pick of the week. And I don't see anything in the notes, James, but I'm going to throw it to you first, just as a courtesy. Do you have a pick of the week?
Chris, I'm going to be honest. This week, I do not have a pick of the week. I've been pretty busy. I've been doing a lot of old things, but I just don't have anything new to request or to suggest to the people. But I think you probably have two things, so I think that might make up for it.
I do. I kind of set you up for a plug for your stream. For Twitch. Yeah,
twitch.tv/@SgeeksJames. If you got those Amazon Prime, if you have Amazon Prime, you can link your Amazon Prime account. You get one free subscription. If you want to subscribe to me, I would really appreciate it. You also will get a little badge by your name, and you will get access to a pickle emoji in Twitch, which Chris is the curator, or not curator, but the producer of. They both look great, in my opinion. It's pretty cool. Just come by, say hi, and we'll have a good time.
It's worth it for the pickle emote. Like, that's it. Like, there's
it's true.
If there's any reason,
I've given, I've said that you'll get a pickle emote. It technically hasn't been approved by Twitch, but I've seen a lot of emotes, and I think a pickle emote will get approved.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the pickle emote. I do have two things. It's like you're a mind reader, or you can read Google Notes.
Nope, just an English reader.
That's right. James is illiterate. I forgot. So let's see. Let's start with we're talking streaming. So I do all my stuff off a desktop, so I don't have a monitor with built-in camera and all that stuff. And I've been able to join James on. We did some retro streaming on some Switch Online games, some classic NES and Super Nintendo stuff. So another reason to hop on James's Twitch stream. But I was really disappointed with the camera, because I kind of found workarounds to use an old PlayStation 3, and it just didn't look right. I couldn't get the green screen, I couldn't get the production value that I wanted. And I've been wanting a better webcam for my computer, and you can't find any name brand ones, especially like Amazon. You can find a ton of knockoff and, really cheap cameras that I didn't want to spend $50-$60 on something and get a potato camera that didn't look any better than this place. The PlayStation 1 was fine. It just colors and stuff, and it wasn't sharp, and it was only, SD.
It was designed to pick up glowing bulbs of light is what it was designed for all the Move controllers. So it's just not made for what you wanted to use it for.
Yeah. So I picked up today. There was one at my local Walmart. It was the Razer Kaio camera. It's got a ring light around it, so I always look really good. And James, I'm gonna grab the box again, because I read it to you off air. And, the unboxing of a new product is always exciting. But I love how Razer welcomed me. Because, anytime you buy like a new piece of equipment, it's like, congratulations. Like, I just unlocked some sort of achievement that I could purchase something.
Right.
And again, I'm not out to become a Twitch star. But it says, congratulations, there's no turning back. As the world of live streaming grows larger, more entertaining, and more competitive, many want to climb the ranks to stardom. The Razer Broadcaster line of products is designed to give you the unfair streaming advantage. So I'm just saying, watch your back, James, because...
Well, what I'm thinking is we would have to cut a mean promo, but I think we might be able to make our run to tag team champions of the world.
Hey,
Twitch Tag Team Champions of the world. So
stay tuned, folks.
Stay tuned.
Watch out. Tuned. Get those bits ready to throw us those bits.
Throw your Witcher a bit.
The thing that I want to also point out, and I'm a big fan of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix. And since we last brought you a new podcast episode, Netflix dropped their interactive special, which is it's longer than a normal episode. It'll probably take you close to an hour to finish the story. And unlike some interactive stuff, this definitely falls more in line with like Bandersnatch rather than like the interactive where in the world is Carmen Sandiego thing, which it's like, oh, nope, you picked the wrong thing. Try again. This actually will let you make the wrong decision early on in the show. And then when you get to the end, it's like, nah, you should have done this thing. If only you had done this one thing within the first 10 minutes of the movie, you could have done all of the things. There's many different paths that this story takes place with many inside jokes to previous episodes. It's very seamless. James, are you someone who likes to skip? This is the only thing I'll spoil. Are you a skip intro on a TV series kind of guy?
If I've seen the intro, yeah, I skip it.
So if you're binging,
it's actually really funny because when I first start the first episode, I like to watch it let's say I watched episodes 1 through 3 yesterday and I'm starting it again today. Episode 4, I'll usually watch the intro, but I'll skip it every time until I'm done watching for that day.
Yeah. Some people definitely are very much into that skip intro. That skip intro button is also a trigger for stuff to happen in the show. So it's sneak. Yeah, it's worth the very first time you do it to hit skip intro. So just to see it because it catches you off guard. It's pretty funny. So that about does it for the podcast. Thanks everybody for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms. Of course, you want to follow James on Twitch, SGeeksJames on twitch.tv, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. Be a part of the Geek State. Join the conversation. Stay excellent to each other. And we'll see you next time.
Rook is with you.
Clan Elder is with you.
Clan Kreese is with you.
The Protectors are with you.
Clan Ren is with you. Now I understand why the saber came to me. It came to me so I could pass it to you.
I accept this sword for my sister, for my clan, and for all of Mandalore.
Now, I got to say, I demolished an entire large pizza last night, and my stomach has made noise all day today.
I'm so proud of you. That's the most proud I've ever been.
I didn't mean to. I don't. They didn't cut it into enough slices.
I've been in that situation.
I was like, there's only like 5 slices.
Also, sometimes it's been a self-imposed situation where I make my own pizza at home and I only cut it into 4 slices. And then I'm like, I'll have 2. And then I'm like, I'll go back for 1. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to just have 1 slice for a full meal. So this one's got to go 2.
It's rare that a frozen pizza doesn't go completely eaten in one sitting. I'll just only on occasion where it's like, I'm kind of hungry.
I mean, what kind of monster reheats a frozen pizza?
Nobody. You're not going to put a Jack's pizza.
It.
Yeah, what are you going to throw a Jack's in the
fucking Jack's?
Man, Walmart has them for 2 for $4.
Those things are dirt cheap.
and I tried to make one better. I thought, well, maybe last time I didn't do this right. Which first of all, wasn't following the rules. They tell you to put it directly on the rack. Which I did not do.
But you did Pizza Stone, didn't you?
Yeah. So this time This time I preheated the oven and I had the stone in there and I let that thing get real hot.
Yeah.
Then I placed my pizza directly onto the hot stone to try to get that crust crispy all the way through. And the middle still was limpy.
We do know that Jax tends to be limp.
Yeah. Deserving of that 0.8. I'm just saying. All right.